Now, turning things more towards Illinois, Governor Pat Quinn is saying that he expects the Illinois Senate to return to Springfield by the end of this month to take up the pension borrowing bill, which made it through the House but had trouble in the Senate. Now, Senate President Cullerton has said that he's not really pushing members either way on this vote. Is that from your standpoint, is that politically smart, or?
Well, look, it's smart if Cullerton, I assume, can count, and he doesn't have the votes to pass it. Quinn can jump up and down all he wants to about the need to pass the thing, but and he's right. There is a need to do something about the pension payments that are due, but there's no point in bringing the Senate or back to Springfield if you don't have the votes to pass it. And right now, it's pretty obvious to me Cullerton does not have the votes. Who knows whether he'll put something together, but right now he doesn't have the vote to pass it, and that's why they haven't called back.
Now, the feeling is that the Republicans had such a hardline position on this issue, especially over in the House, and now it appears they're having trouble in the Senate, to bring the Democrats back to the table to talk about where to cut the budget, which is something that they've been advocating for quite a while. Does this make the Democrats look weak? Is this a good way to move forward with, how to cut the budget?
It makes the Democrats look weak. Look, the Democrats are in charge. The Democrats have the majorities, rather substantial majorities. And so the Republicans are being what a minority party always does, and that is, since you're in charge, you deal with it. Republicans aren't real keen on borrowing money. They're not real keen on raising taxes. So this doesn't surprise me that you have this mantra coming out of the Republicans that you got to cut, 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 even though they have never once shown a clear, credible plan for doing that. They're the minority party.
Now, one thing the legislature did pass before their session ended was they passed the Emergency Budget Powers Act for Governor Quinn. Now, this is really unprecedented control that the governor has over how the state is going to spend its money. But politically, doesn't that hurt Governor Quinn? I mean, if he's cutting programs, doesn't that hurt him during an election year against Republican Bill Brady?
Yes, but the legislature doesn't really care. I mean, we're all in this by ourselves in politics. And the first task of every politician is to get himself or herself reelected. And for legislators to deal with this, they are going to have to cut taxes or raise spending or do both. That solution has been obvious to everybody for a long time. But to do that before an election is can be politically difficult and maybe even suicidal for any number of legislators. So they let the governor make the tough choices. And it may in fact cause him some problems because he's not going to have enough money to go around. He's going to have to make some painful cuts. And here's where it's short-sighted on the part of Democrats. Their failure in the legislature to resolve this issue does make Pat Quinn look bad. And Pat Quinn is governor. They may not like him, but he is a Democrat. And there's only one thing that they're going to want out of that governor in 2011, and that's a signature on a redistricting bill. And if Bill Brady is governor, the Democrats, even if they control the legislature, aren't necessarily going to be able to win approval of a redistricting plan. But for now, it's first things first. And the first task of Democratic legislators and of Republican legislators is to get reelected. That's why all these games are being played.
A recent poll released by Public Policy Polling showed that the race for governor was actually tightening up. It's quite a contrast to earlier polls that had showed Senator Brady with up to an 11-point lead over Governor Quinn. How did you interpret that poll?
Polls will ebb and flow. Different polls will show different results. Polls are not a predictor. They're a picture in time. Look, I have said all along that I think this is going to be a good year for Republicans. The Democratic base is not happy. Young people are staying home. Minority voters are staying home. That Obama coalition that was so helpful to Democrats in 2006 and 2008 is not materializing again. And if that happens in Illinois, it'll be a good night for Republicans. But it is also true that Illinois is still a Democratic state. And what happens at the end of, as a campaign goes on, is that party faith will tend to come home. So while there are a lot of Democrats who aren't happy at Pat Quinn for one thing or another, Dan Hines supporter, labor union supporter, women, they'll tend to come home. It's also true that the suburban vote, which Republicans used to have, is becoming more Democratic. There are more Hispanics in the Illinois electorate than ever before. That's a group that Republicans have not done much to attract. In fact, they've alienated those voters. So while it looks like a good year for Republicans, This is Illinois. It will get tighter.
So do you foresee the National Republican momentum giving Mark Kirk enough to overcome the recent trouble or hot water that he's come into?
Well, it could. It should. This is happening. This thing with Mark Kirk and the whole fiasco over his how he stated his military record. He is not handling it well. He's cutting the tail off the dog an inch at a time here. He needs to go in and have a full-blown press conference, talk this thing out, burn this thing out now. Have one big story as opposed to dozens of little ones. Get rid of this issue in June, in the summer, so that come November, this campaign can focus on something else. The way he's handling this is very inept. The poll numbers have tightened up. The subject has moved away from Janulius's bank and onto Kirk's military record. It ought to be something that Kirk stands up, apologizes for, and lays it all out and is done with. Instead, he's sneaking in out of hotels to avoid reporters. There's no way to handle a situation like this.
David Yepsen, Director of the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bart.